Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Va Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Jagopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Rajajanaranjana Shodanandana Rajajanaranjana Shodanandana Rajajanaranjana Shodanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Natiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajak Acharya Astotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Bindi Ki Jai ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai From whole Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shuddhaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sri Mayapur Navati Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Shamavera Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Thaigo Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Satani Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we are reading from, welcome everyone, and we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam this morning. From the first canto, 6th chapter, and this is text 68. Prayujamane maitam shudham bhagavatam tanum arabdha karma nirvana nyapatat panchabhotika. So Narada Muni just described in his last life how he left his body, the experience. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 6th chapter, text 28. Narada Muni described his experience in leaving his body, which was like lightning and illumination. That he achieved a spiritual body, his body was spiritualized and in this life, and he achieved a spiritual body. So this is the next verse. Translation, having been awarded a transcendental body, befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fruitive results of work, karma, stopped. Purport. Informed by the personality of Godhead that he would be awarded a transcendental body befitting the Lord's association, Narada got his spiritual body as soon as he quitted his material body. I think that's supposed to be quit. This transcendental body is free from material affinity and invested with 3 primary transcendental qualities, namely eternity, freedom from material modes, and freedom from reactions of fruitive activities. The material body is always afflicted with the lack of these 3 qualities. Freedom from eternity, freedom from the modes, freedom from fruitive activities. So the material body lacks these 3. A devotee's body becomes at once surcharged with the transcendental qualities as soon as he engages in the transcendental service of the Lord. It acts like the magnetic influence of a touchstone upon iron. The influence of transcendental devotional service is like that. Therefore, change of the body means stoppage of the reaction of the 3 qualitative modes of material nature upon the pure devotee. There are many instances of this in the revealed scriptures. Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and many other devotees were able to see the personality of Godhead face to face, apparently in the same body. This means that the quality of a devotee's body changes from material to transcendence. That is the option of the authorized Goswamis via the authentic scriptures. Excuse me. That is the opinion of the authorized Goswamis via the authentic scriptures. It's their opinion that devotee's body changes from material to transcendence. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that beginning from the Indragopa germ up to the great Indra, king of heaven, all living beings are subjected to the law of karma and are bound to suffer and enjoy the fruitive results of their own work. Only the devotee is exempt from such reactions by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Authority, the personality of Godhead. So what's being said here is, because Narada Muni received his spiritual form, it wasn't possible that he'd get that form unless he was free from all karmic reactions. Otherwise, if you have reactions, you have to take birth. And then the devotee thinks, well, I become a devotee, so all my reactions are purified, so I won't come back if we have, as we discussed before, if we have material desire, we will come back. So, one has to have total shelter at the feet of Guru and Krishna. And then Guru and Krishna take charge of everything, and then you don't have to worry. So the life of a devotee, he doesn't calculate like non-devotees. So non-devotee may calculate, well, I have so many reactions, sinful reactions, I should perform atonement, I should perform piety, I should balance the accounts. So that's still self-centered. We're trying to create, some people perform religious activities to create piety. So they're trying to balance the piety over the sin. And then they think, okay, well, if I can create more piety, then the next thing, I'll do some atonement, then I'll absolve myself of sin. So then everything will be good. But devotee doesn't think that way. Sometimes Prabhupada would say that whatever is going to happen, let it happen. And we take shelter of Krishna. So whatever my karma is, let that come. Or whatever Krishna will arrange. Even if we say, well, we don't have karma, but whatever vestiges or traces of karma may be there, let it happen, and we take shelter of Krishna. Or let Krishna decide how he wants to deal with it, how he wants to use it. That's the attitude of a devotee, so he doesn't calculate. As we said before, he's not calculating anything other than how I can serve Krishna. So he's just absorbed in serving Krishna. Now, it doesn't mean that he doesn't think, it doesn't mean he doesn't think practically about things, but in a higher sense, he accepts that ultimately whatever is going to happen, he accepts it as the will of Krishna. And then he, as we said last night, he doesn't become deterred by it. He's not, there's a story that death was supposed to come to a man in a certain place, so he left that place. You know that story? He left that place, and how does the story go? By chance, death couldn't go to the place he was supposed to. He was death personified, went to another place, but the man happened to be at that place. So he knew death was supposed to come in one place, so he left that place. And by chance, by accident, death ended up in the place that he went and met him. So it's like that. You know, you're trying to avoid karma in that way. It's not possible. And even for a devotee, if there's karma, if there's reactions due to past sinful activities, they may gradually be removed, and Krishna may not remove any karma that may help the devotee. So you may have some karma that will help you. Bad karma, but it'll help you become Krishna conscious. So Krishna may allow that karma to stay because it will help you. So the way karma works for a devotee, it's a bit different, because it's more under the guidance and shelter of Krishna. But anyway, as I said, it's not the concern of the devotee so much. Because ultimately we want to, the concern of the devotee is how I can serve and how I can advance. So whatever we need to do that will help our service and our advancement, then we do that. And whatever consideration we need to make that will help our service and advancement, we make that consideration. So maybe karmically there's a better situation for service, or karmically there's a situation which would be detrimental to service. So we may make adjustments that way. But as Prabhupada said, ultimately, we accept the will of Krishna. That's our attitude. So we're trying to get out of this consciousness where we're overly concerned about our material situation and what's best for us. And we're trying to be in the consciousness of what's best for Krishna's service. And what's best for us would be in relation to Krishna's service. So what's best for me in my service. What's best, how I can, what would be a situation I would put myself in where I could do the most service, or situation where I would I could make the most advancement. That's how a devotee thinks. He doesn't think of it separately, how I won't suffer, how I'll be comfortable, how I'll be happy. That consideration may be there in terms of service. Obviously, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to be in a situation where we can do service nicely. So that's the consideration. But it's not just, will this make me happy, or will this cause me distress? We want to get out of thinking that way, in terms of, will this make me happy? Will I like this? As opposed to, will this make Krishna happy? Will he like it? That's how we're being trained to think, because that's how a pure devotee thinks. And that's how anybody thinks who loves another person. You're always thinking about the other person. But conditioned life means we're thinking about ourselves. And we're so used to it, and sometimes it's subtle for us. We don't notice it because we always think that way. So when you do something all the time, you don't notice it. Right? Because that's the way you always do it. So that's our attitude. Will this be good for me? Will it be good for me is a question we can ask in relation to, will it be good for me in my service? Will it be good for my family in our service? So we have to have some material stability for our service. So if we're looking for material stability or a nice material situation, it's a foundation for our service. But if we're looking at just for ourselves, that's a mistake. Or we're looking to avoid suffering. Sometimes we may have to accept suffering in relation to our service. So we shouldn't try to avoid it. And sometimes happiness may come, and we shouldn't try to avoid that. If happiness comes in relation to our service, we don't try to avoid it. We accept both in a detached way. That's the idea. So, the devotee's not overly concerned about previous karmic reactions because he allows Krishna to take charge of his life. So he gives his life to Krishna and he doesn't worry so much. So, okay, now I've given you, Krishna, I've given myself to you. So I just want to serve you. And I depend on you, you'll take care of everything. Both materially, you'll take care of my sinful reactions, whatever. Or a devotee may pray, oh, Krishna, allow me to suffer, whatever I am meant to suffer. But as we read yesterday, please give me the association of devotees, that's my prayer. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed the same way. Even as an insect, I'll take birth as an insect, but let me have the association of devotees. So it's a different way of thinking, because a devotee's happiness is in the sangha of devotees, because there he can hear and chant about Krishna, and there he can serve Krishna. So that's his happiness. His happiness is in relation to Krishna. So he's not thinking so much about, oh Krishna, if I have to take birth again, please let me take birth in America in a wealthy family. He doesn't think that way. Now, if he's thinking in terms of service, America needs Krishna consciousness. If I must take birth, let me take birth. I want to save America. Let me take birth in a wealthy family so I can be free to do devotional service. Yeah, okay. Then he might pray that way, but not otherwise. That's the idea. But ultimately, the prayer of a devotee is always, Krishna, whatever you want. Just like when Prabhupada was ill, we prayed for him, and he gave us the prayer. And he said, Krishna, if you so desire, please cure Prabhupada. He wanted Krishna's will to be there, because he didn't want to demand Krishna to offer him something that Krishna may not want, because Krishna might do that. So when a devotee prays, Krishna, please help me with this or give me that, if you desire, if you feel this is beneficial, or if this is the right desire. That's the optimum way to pray. Maybe we don't always pray that way, but that's the optimum way. If this is the right thing, if this is your desire, if it is your will, if you allow, please help me. I would like to do this service, I would like to do that. If it's your will, please. Or higher service, higher mentalities, whatever your will is. Or show me your will. Let me understand how I can better serve you. So that's where we want to come to. That's the idea. And so, as far as what's described here in this verse, the karmic reactions and so forth, that's not such a concern for a devotee. If we must suffer, he's willing to accept it because he feels he deserves it. So let me suffer for whatever sinful action I did. So naturally, materialistic person will commit sin, but then he doesn't want to suffer for it. Commits sin and somehow wants to atone for it. You have that in the Catholic Church, atone for your sin. But devotee doesn't really think that way. He thinks, well, if I've committed the sin, then I deserve to suffer. So Krishna, whatever suffering you feel I deserve, then for my past sins, then I accept that. That's the idea. That's the consciousness. Because the devotee doesn't like to ask Krishna for anything unless what he's asking for can be used to serve Krishna, or what he's asking for can be used to help the devotee become Krishna conscious. That's how a devotee thinks. But if he's asking for himself, then he's reluctant. Just like we have the story of Gajendra, and he was fighting with his crocodile for how many years? 100 years? 1,000 years? So he came to a point where he realized that he's going to lose. At that point he prayed to Krishna as his only shelter. He didn't know what else to do. So, and Prabhupada said that generally a devotee won't ask Krishna for anything material. But in that situation, Gajendra had no other shelter. So then Prabhupada said that then when a devotee is in a situation where it's dangerous, he has no other shelter, then naturally he'll pray to Krishna. But his normal consciousness is he doesn't want to ask Krishna for anything other than that which will help him in his service or his spiritual advancement. But it's natural for a devotee when they're in danger to pray to Krishna, please help. But there's a reluctance in the higher stages of devotional service for the devotee to ask Krishna to do anything that's not directly in relation to service, to make his life easier, to make his life more comfortable. Only if in some way is in relation to better serving him would he ask. Otherwise, he's reluctant to ask Krishna for anything because he just wants to serve. He says that's love. And the devotee goes around the world, he only prays to Krishna, how I can serve you. He prays to Krishna that I won't fall into Maya. He prays to Krishna that I can help other people. Like that. That's where his consciousness is. And when a devotee is in that consciousness, then he becomes empowered to give Krishna consciousness to others. Because he can now think about others. Because he's not thinking about himself anymore. But if we think too much about ourselves, it's hard to purely think about the welfare of others. So then you look at Prabhupada. So, Prabhupada came to America, and what was he thinking about? He was thinking about the order of his spiritual master. The order of his spiritual master was to give Krishna consciousness. So he was just thinking about how to give Krishna consciousness to everybody and anybody, and how to spread it all over the world. That's all he thought about. And how he was going to live, he didn't think about. Where he was going to live, he didn't think about. And if he were thinking about those things, it would have been difficult to do that service. Because naturally, you would come to America and you'd think, okay, I only have $7 or whatever Prabhupada had. and I only have one contact, so how am I going to live here? I don't think I should come, it's too dangerous. I'm old, I'm not healthy, there's no security. That's how you would think. That's normal. Normally that's how people would think, because people would normally think about their own security. So Prabhupada didn't think that. He thought, well, here's the order of my guru, so that has to be executed, and there's so many people in America that need Krishna consciousness, so let's go, at the risk of life. And Prabhupada said that. He said, I did it at the risk of my life, because he didn't know. The risk was he didn't know. And if he wasn't in that consciousness, he wouldn't have been able to do it. It required that consciousness, that my concern is for the conditioned souls. I want them to be Krishna conscious. I have no other concern. Otherwise, why would he come? Now, what's the concern of the average person, especially in that age? Their concern is their family, then their grandchildren, the business is secure, the children are educated. And not that these things are wrong, but as we said yesterday, at some point in life, one has to cut or detach himself from these things. So for us, as disciples of Prabhupada or disciples of Prabhupada's disciples, and especially for those of us who want to give Krishna consciousness to others, then we have this example of Prabhupada, that this is what's required, that you're putting the welfare of others above your own. Not that you neglect your needs or you neglect your family, but your concern is how to give Krishna consciousness. So of course, Prabhupada took sannyas, so he didn't have to have concern for family anymore. But even as a sannyasi, he took care of them. He gave them money and so forth. So we don't neglect our material situation. We don't neglect our health. We don't neglect our families. But we can understand the consciousness of the empowered preacher. And so there was one letter that Prabhupada wrote. Well, it was one thing he said very early on in the movement, as the movement was expanding and devotees were preaching. He said, anyone who will go anywhere to spread Krishna consciousness and not consider, well, if I do this, how will I live? How will I eat? Where will I stay? He said, if one will spread Krishna consciousness in that mood, without that consideration, without the worry, but I'll just do it for Krishna and depend on him. He said, Prabhupada said, I will take the dust of his feet and I will put it on my head. So he was thereby telling us, this is the mood of a preacher, that I'll go. I'll give Krishna consciousness. I'll depend on Krishna. And then, so now, of course, we know the story, how Prabhupada struggled, but at a certain point, after the glorious struggle, there was the glorious victory, and how Krishna just took so much care of Prabhupada and sent so many people, because Prabhupada's only interest was to help people. So Krishna sent so many people who could help Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, I couldn't do it alone, so Krishna sent so many people to help him. And gave Prabhupada so much. And as we said last night, one of the glories of Prabhupada and the glories of a devotee is that when times are difficult, they're not deterred. And when times are good, and Krishna gives them a lot, they're not deterred by what they're getting. They're not deterred in either situation. So Krishna's happy to give his devotees everything to serve him. When they pass the test, that when they don't have anything, they'll continue to serve him. When things are difficult, they'll continue to serve. So then Krishna sees, okay, my devotee is steady, he's not attached or detached from things of this world, so I can give him things and he'll use them in my service. So it's, reciprocal, and Krishna also likes to serve his devotees. So how does Krishna serve his devotees? He takes care of them. So many people took care of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada didn't have to worry about anything. As Prabhupada said, he had 4 children, and now he has thousands of children. So Krishna, he gave up his small family, and Krishna gave him thousands of children. So he understood that, he appreciated that, he pointed that out. So that's the faith of the devotee, that Krishna will do that. And Prabhupada often said that you make propaganda for someone, they'll pay you. You make propaganda for Krishna, he'll take care of you. He's not ungrateful. So Krishna likes to serve his devotee. So Krishna served Prabhupada in so many ways. That's Krishna's pleasure. Not that Prabhupada asked it, but Krishna was happy to do that service. Right? Yes? Let's see who's out there. Yes, out? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Mahatma. And Jai Paul. And Jeremy, Timothy, everybody. Let's see who's on Krishna.com. We're also doing double duty. Yes, Judy. Of course, what we're talking about here, it's a very, it's an advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, but at the same time it was a consciousness which we understood very early on that was necessary to give Krishna consciousness to other people. At least to have the desire for others to become Krishna conscious, and to understand that that is the best desire I can have. Prabhupada would sometimes say, by that desire we become Krishna conscious. That desire itself will make us Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada instilled that desire within the hearts of his disciples, and therefore they sacrificed so much. Now a lot of people say, well, it was a little artificial, they weren't that advanced. But Prabhupada didn't really directly say that. And most devotees will tell you that even though they sacrifice so much, they don't regret it. They might say, well, I can't do that now. By Prabhupada's inspiration I did it, but they won't regret it. And they understand that's the right consciousness. And that's how Krishna consciousness spreads. And then sometimes we become too concerned about our likes and dislikes. I don't want to work with this person. I don't like that person. Okay, these things are practical, and sometimes we have to deal with them practically. But we don't want to become too absorbed in that consciousness. Because then we can't function properly in an organization, which requires people who will make sacrifice. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said something very interesting in explaining how much energy it requires to make somebody Krishna conscious. He said we must be prepared to give gallons of blood or tons of blood to make one person, to bring one person to Krishna consciousness. It requires so much effort. And in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada distinguishes the quality of a devotee over other transcendentalists by his compassion. And it's interesting because he says that other spiritualists, they're concerned about their own liberation. He said, but a devotee is not concerned about his own liberation. He's concerned about others, which means the devotee is higher. And that's how a devotee is distinguished as higher than other spiritualists. Say, okay, this person is spiritual. He's renounced this world, but he's renouncing it so he can go to a better world. So he's still self-centered. It's an adjustment, but fundamentally the consciousness is very similar. It's about me. Now, it doesn't mean in Krishna consciousness we don't think about ourselves. We have to think about our spiritual advancement, because if we don't, we won't be able to help anybody. If we don't advance, we can't help anybody. So there is a sense of concern, self-concern, about we need to take care of ourselves. But when a devotee takes care of himself or herself, the devotee is doing that as service. This is my service. My spiritual master wants me to advance. Srila Prabhupada, how can we please you? Love Krishna. Okay, if loving Krishna will please Prabhupada, then it's my service to do the things which will help me love Krishna, right? So that's not selfish. I'm not doing it. You see, you have to understand, or we have to understand, that when we say selfish, or we're talking about gratifying our material senses. So, let's say you read the Bhagavatam and you relish hearing Bhagavatam, and then say, is that sense gratification? No, because sense gratification means Krishna's not there, and you're doing it to gratify your senses. Now, your senses are more gratified by hearing about Krishna, but it's not personal sense gratification, it's service. So, there's difference there. So, it's our service to relish Krishna consciousness. It's our service to be happy in Krishna consciousness. It's our service to our spiritual master and Prabhupada to advance in Krishna consciousness. Right? That's all service. So we consider these things. Will this help me, or will this hinder me in my spiritual progress? Now, then you might say, well, does a devotee think about anything else personally? They may, but ultimately it's always in relation to how it can be used for Krishna. I bought this. Why did you buy it? Because I can listen to lectures, or because I can, it helps me sit up straight so I can chant my rounds better. There's always going to be, or because I have this problem with my leg. All right, so your body belongs to Krishna. You want to be healthy. So it's always going to be some consideration of service, or some consideration of how I can advance in Krishna consciousness. It's never, why did you buy this? Because I like it. That's all. It's the only reason? Yeah. What about Krishna? No. We're not supposed to be that way. Of course, sometimes we are like that. Right? Yeah, even when you're eating, you're shopping, you're buying things you like to eat, but still, you offer them to Krishna. So, you're not going to buy something if it makes you sick. Okay. You don't buy things you don't like to eat. Okay, that's understandable, that's practical. But still you offer it to Krishna, so Krishna's involved. That's the idea. Or, why are you playing this music? Because I like it, but it's Krishna conscious. Okay, we like it, so we play it. It's Krishna conscious music. On a higher stage, then when we ask you, why are you playing this music? Because it makes me think of Krishna more. It inspires me in devotional service. That's why I do it. And even though I like it, but if it doesn't help me in Krishna consciousness, I won't use it. I won't play it. I won't do it. That's the idea. You may like something, but if it doesn't help you in Krishna consciousness, then you don't do it, or you minimize it, or somehow you have to figure out how it can help you in Krishna consciousness. That's the idea. So ultimately, Prabhupada said everything we're saying here, Prabhupada took it into a little package and said, okay, here it's all about giving Krishna consciousness to other people. Now it's not all about you anymore. It's about giving it to other people. And when you give it to other people, then you make advancement. Why do you make advancement? Because you stop thinking about yourself. And it's difficult for us as conditioned souls not to be always thinking about ourselves. Because we identify with the body needs gratification, needs comfort. So it's natural to be thinking about ourselves. But a higher platform is to think about others, and that helps us transcend our own selfishness. So right from the very beginning, Prabhupada encouraged devotees to give Krishna consciousness to others, not just for others' benefit, but for their own benefit. To stop the process of just thinking about themselves, and to start the process of thinking about others. And then what we found in our movement is that devotees would say how happy they were, how much bliss they experienced when they were just thinking about giving Krishna consciousness to others. And if you actually think about it, it's quite interesting, because it's such a magnanimous service to give Krishna consciousness to others. It's such a high thing, such a glorious service. And then, because we're trying to make another person happy, we're trying to make Krishna happy, and this will benefit them, and it could benefit the whole universe. The whole world could be benefited. But just trying to make ourselves happy, it's a very, very low level of consciousness. You know, it's like, I could be serving Krishna, but I'm just serving myself. And it's funny, because serving ourselves is not really that enjoyable. It's not really that pleasurable when you think about it. And that's what we're always doing, isn't it? We're always serving ourselves, but when you think about it, it's not a very magnanimous position. The animals are serving themselves also. Everybody's serving themselves. And there's not much bliss you can derive from serving yourself, but there's unlimited bliss you can derive, and unlimited spiritual power and purification you can derive by serving others. So, you know, it's not a very glorious life that we serve ourselves. I mean, we have to take care of ourselves, we have a family to take care of, our extended self. But the extended family is the family of all living entities, and that's glorious, to serve them. That's a glorious life. Much more glorious than serving ourselves. And if we put it in perspective, then we can see that serving ourselves, although necessary, it's not, it doesn't distinguish us as, how should I say, as special. But when you serve others, you give others Krishna consciousness, that's special. You become special. The activity is special. And that's the fundamental characteristic of a devotee. Yes?
So, we should have desire to serve Krishna, but there are desires, material desires that we want to enjoy from. So, although we do it artificially, it is not there in the heart. We
serve Krishna artificially. So he's saying we should desire to not be self-centered, we should desire to just make Krishna the self that we serve. But we have desires to serve ourselves.
So we subside those desires artificially, although they are there in the heart.
Do we repress them artificially?
We suppress them.
So he's asking, do we suppress those desires? Subside the desires? No. Well, if you can't use those desires in Krishna's service, then you have to do something with them. You have to get rid of them. You have to purify them. And anything that you can use in Krishna's service, then you use. Otherwise, the desire will drive you crazy. So, as far as possible, we try to utilize those desires. I mean, some desires you may not be able to utilize, like smoking marijuana. You may not be able to utilize that desire unless you're really sick and it'll help you. Or, blowing up the world. I want to blow up the world. I have an intense desire to blow up the world. Well, it may be difficult to employ that desire at this time in Krishna's service. So it's just something you want to do. So then naturally you have to give that up. So the principle of bhakti is you give up anything which can't be used for Krishna, you give it up. But you try to see how you can utilize everything for Krishna. So you just make adjustments according to where you're at. And what you know, let's say you're a musician, you can't give it up. It's a desire you have, so that's easy to connect. Writing is easy to connect. Building is easy to connect. Being an artist is easy to connect. So many things are very easy to connect. Even writing software, you can write applications for phones. Krishna, make games, games for devotees, kids. There's some things are just directly engageable. You want to get married, you raise a family in Krishna consciousness. It's engageable. So we're not heavy on the renunciation side, but we're heavy on the side of doing things just because we want to enjoy them. So it goes back to the same thing. Okay, I have this desire. All right, so let's use it for Krishna. As long as it's not sinful. As long as it's not outside the principles and practices of bhakti.
So those desires will naturally go away when we chant nicely?
Will those desires go away? Depends. If those desires are inherent within your nature, they may not go away. Just like, let's say it's your nature to be a Vaishya. So, because it's your nature, that desire is not going to go away, but it'll be purified. But if it's a desire to have money to enjoy, that desire will go away. But your desire to make money won't go away, but your desire to make money, your desire for why you make money will change. So as you become purified, you want to use that money for devotional projects. Before you're purified, you just want to make more money to live nicely. Because that's your nature, is to make money. So how you use it will change. The kama, the lobha, the matsara, the envy, the lust, the greed, these things, of course, will go away. But, as Prabhupada said so many times, desire's not going to go away, right? So, it's artificial. Somebody likes to teach and study, they have a Brahminical nature. So when they're, a pure devotee, they'll still have a Brahminical nature. So they use that in Krishna service. Somebody has a nature to manage. So when he becomes a pure devotee, he still has that nature. But all the things that go against service, they become purified. But the nature doesn't change. What changes is your position in the modes of nature. So then in the lower stages of devotional service, you may be battling more with ignorance and passion, and then you go to a higher stage. So as you advance, you come to goodness, and then you transcend goodness. So that definitely changes. But even when you come to goodness, you'll still have the nature of a Vaishya, because that's your nature. But now you'll do it in a most Krishna conscious way possible. And even if you're a Vaishya, it doesn't mean that you live in the mode of passion. Because in Krishna consciousness, we all live a Brahminical lifestyle. But that just means you employ those natures in Krishna service. Because it's your swabhav. That's what you do. There's nothing wrong with that. But you do it in a Brahminical way. So what does it mean, Brahminical? Well, you wouldn't open a business selling liquor or cigarettes or meat, right? Because you're cultivating Brahminical culture. And you may be Vaishya and get Brahminical initiation. The Vaishya is your nature, so you employ that nature. But you have a Brahminical life. You rise early, you worship the deity. You don't say, well, I'm a Vaishya, so I shouldn't take Brahminical initiation. No, that's different. All these other desires which can't be engaged in Krishna service, they have to be purified. So you have to understand what's engageable and what's not engageable. Does that make sense? Then you have the example of Hanuman. He engaged his anger. So, we say, overcome anger, but he engaged it. And Prabhupada gives the example of the gopis, how they would be envious of the other gopis. You're serving Krishna more nicely than I'm serving. But that envy would inspire them. So they engaged envy in a transcendental way. So that's also there. So if we find that we're envious, then be envious of some advanced devotee in a way that inspires you, that I want to be like him, or I want to be like her. It's transcendental envy. That's good. Anything bad, engage it. Make it good. Otherwise, you'll engage it anyway, because it's your nature. That's Bhagavad Gita right in the beginning, right? What did Krishna tell Arjuna? He said, you're going to engage anyway. So you can't be a Brahmin. It's not your nature. It's not going to work. But for us as devotees, especially initiated devotees, we're cultivating sattva gun, which is Brahminical. So there's we're cultivating all the Brahminical qualities: cleanliness, rising early, satyam, socham, arjavam, honesty, tolerance. We cultivate all these qualities. That's what Krishna consciousness is about. It's our own culture. So you can't avoid that because of your nature. So it's not my nature to get up early. No, you have to. It's not my nature to sit down and chant. No, you have to. Well, it's my nature to be active. Okay, that's fine. But these 2 hours you have to sit down and chant. Then you can be active. So, well, it's not my nature to study. Well, you have to read anyway, a little bit. You have to hear. You have to learn. All right. If it's your nature to study, you can do it all day. But if it's not your nature, but still it's part of the practice of bhakti, so you have to do it. You can't say it's not my nature, so I'm not going to do it. That's not good. Right? If it's your nature to do it, then you can teach it. You can become a scholar, teach it to others. So that's nice. If it's not your nature, still you have to read and learn and preach, because that's what Prabhupada wants. Anyone have any questions? In Mayapur TV land or Krishna.com land? See, one of the things we want to realize is how much we think about ourselves, how much our happiness is so important, how much we think our happiness is so important. But Krishna's happiness is what's important. Our spiritual master's happiness, Prabhupada's happiness, that's what's important. So once you make that shift, then everything becomes clear. And we were saying last night how sometimes we're chanting and we're not feeling bliss, so we become discouraged. But a devotee in this consciousness will think, I'm chanting to please Krishna, because that's his frame of reference. It's always about pleasing Krishna. So it's not a problem if he's not experiencing bliss. Just like we have this example that sometimes the devotees experience ecstatic symptoms, like they'll cry, or their body will shiver. And the devotee is thinking, if these ecstatic symptoms impede my service, then I don't want them. They get in the way. Because it's always about pleasing Krishna. It's never about themselves. So that's it's a different world of consciousness which we're not so familiar with. But that's what Krishna consciousness is. It's absorption in wanting to please Krishna. Spontaneously, naturally, from the heart, it's a real desire. And so all these other desires you have are just, they're only there because that desire is not strong. It's not awakened. But once that desire is awakened, the other desires will automatically go. Those other desires, they're like, what it's like we're all hungry for happiness. We have so little of it in the material world. So we're actually not hungry, we're starving. So all these desires are they're like things to eat for our starving soul. So we always, because we're starving so much for happiness, because there's so little of it in the material world, we're always grabbing onto things. I want this, I want this, I want, you know. Anything we can get, a little sunshine, oh, that feels good. Oh, it's too hot outside. You go inside, oh, it's cool. Air conditioning, oh, that feels good. We're just, oh, I went shopping today, I saw this. I want to save my money to buy this. I really like this. That's our conditioned thinking. That's why it's hard in Krishna, to become Krishna conscious, because we're so used to thinking in this other way. But just imagine thousands and thousands of devotees who don't think like this, who just think about how we can give Krishna to others. Wow, that's powerful. That has force. Not what I'm going to get out of it, not what position I'm going to get out of it, not how much money I'm going to get out of it, not how many people I can control. Nothing. That's it. Anyway, try to understand it. That's what it's about. Otherwise, we run around the material world starving, grabbing little drops of sense gratification. And what do our acharyas say? They say, my heart's like a desert and sense gratification is a drop of water. It doesn't do anything. So that's our pathetic condition. That we're in this desert and we're looking for drops of water, of sense gratification. And because it doesn't satisfy our thirst, we're always looking for it. And we've been around a long time, many, many lifetimes, and we're still looking for it because it doesn't work. Right? Sarvatma shnapanam. Cleansing, bathing of the soul. Then we're showered by the holy name. Then the soul is bathed in the nectar. And then it becomes the nectar for which we're always anxious. So what does that mean, we're always anxious? We never got it, because we couldn't find it in material activity. And we're always anxious for the spiritual, and we didn't get it. So you just, see, the whole thing is if we give ourselves more and more Krishna consciousness steadily and regularly, all these things will be clear. It won't be a problem. But when we don't get enough Krishna consciousness, then the starvation of the soul kicks in, and then we want things. We want things that we really don't want. We don't really want them. We think we want them because we're starving. As we said the other day, you'll eat anything if you're hungry. Just give me anything. Well, we have some bread, it's 3 weeks old. We can cut the mold off. Yeah, just cut the mold off and give it to me. I'm starving. We'll eat anything. So as starving souls, it's like we do anything for sense gratification. We used to, when we did book distribution, sometimes we would do book distribution at fairs and SeaWorld, Disneyland, places like that where there's entertainment. So the people come in the morning, you see them in the morning, you talk to them, and they're very fresh and lively, optimistic, enthusiastic. But at the end of the day, they come out. It would be so funny, because they'd come out and they'd be burned out. And so, we'd talk amongst the devotees and say, this is really funny. They came here to enjoy. It doesn't look like they had such a great time, because they're all burned out and tired and they want to go home. That's the result of your enjoyment. Could you imagine, we have a festival, we do kirtan, we distribute prasadam, we install deities, we have classes, and at the end of the festival, everybody's burned out. No, it's never like that. But that's the result of material gratification. It doesn't work. It doesn't satisfy anybody. So, they had a great time, but at the end of the day, they're not feeling so great. They're feeling like, hey, we got to go home. Kids are hungry and tired. You're hungry and tired from your hungry and tired, having to deal with your hungry and tired kids. It's, So you had a few drops of, a few rides and saw a few nice things, but, ultimately, where does that put you? It doesn't put you in any different position than you were yesterday. You're still hungry. So our goal is we want to get as much Krishna consciousness as we possibly can. And then all these things will be clear. And you won't want all these other things. Why would you want them? You won't need them, you won't want them. You'll just want to give it to other people. You'll be inspired. That's Krishna consciousness. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now, okay, it's easy to talk about it. We're sitting here just talking about it, but we need to actually get it. We need to give ourselves Krishna consciousness all the time. We need to chant well. We need to always be hearing. We need to be sharing, at least thinking about how we can share, thinking how we can serve. Otherwise, the material world's very powerful. It'll just any desire we have, Maya will just come and pull you. So Krishna, Suryasam Mayahaya Andhakar. Krishna's light, Maya's darkness. So where there's light, darkness can't stand. So if we don't bring in the light of Krishna consciousness into our lives, then we'll say things like, oh, it's so difficult to be Krishna conscious. It's not difficult to be Krishna conscious. It's difficult not to be Krishna conscious. Really. You say, it's so difficult to be Krishna conscious. Hold that statement. What's really difficult is to not be Krishna conscious. Right? Is it difficult to be in a material body? Yes. Is it difficult to take birth and die? Yes. Is it difficult to grow old? Yes. Is it difficult to try to be happy in this material world? Yes. Material life is difficult. Krishna consciousness is not difficult. We have it all backwards. But you just have to give yourself enough Krishna consciousness so you understand that it's not difficult. And you understand material life is difficult. Very difficult. Extremely difficult. It's so difficult, people have to drink alcohol to deal with it. People have to go to movies to forget about it. And watch some imaginary situation which never happens in the material world just so they can dream that there's something better. It's so great that 50% of the people who are madly in love end up hating one another. It's not easy at all. Material life is not easy. Fortunately, it's not easy. That helps us become Krishna conscious. But we just have to understand. We just have to understand the nature of the spiritual world and the nature of the material world. Then you'll see. There's no comparison. And we have to get our minds off the material world. Right? Everyone? True? Is that true or true? Is that good or great? Yes or yes? So, Chandrakanti UK. Hare Krishna. To all assembled devotees. Does anyone knows where in the USA this program comes from? Yeah. Well, Chandrakanti, I travel a lot. Right now I'm in Rochester, New York, which is the northwestern part of New York, because I have some business here. So I'm staying with some devotees. And next week I'll be in Tawako. The weekend after that I'll be in a few other places, but we whenever there's devotees to hear class, we give class in the morning. And then every Tuesday night for sure. So the classes go on despite wherever I am. So, okay, if no one has questions, we'll end here. The moral of the story is material life is difficult, Krishna consciousness is not difficult. Prabhupada said the only thing difficult about Krishna consciousness is your determination to do it. But the actual process is not difficult. Oh, it's so difficult, I have to chant 2 hours a day. I mean, how many hours do people spend on their phone gossiping a day? At least 2 hours, right? So instead of gossiping 2 hours a day on the phone, you could chant Hare Krishna for 2 hours a day. So we make things difficult. You could sit down in front of a movie for 2 hours. No, I don't have any time to read the Bhagavatam. No. Just stop reading the newspaper, stop watching movies, you'll have plenty of time. We have to change our life, change our priorities. Right? Okay?